Welcome back to Watch the Booker Man and to episode number 50 of Paul Heyman's TNA 2010. And this does feel like the first proper milestone that we've reached. 50 episodes I think is really good. And I thought that it was something I had in mind anyway, but after the show I'm going to do something to mark the 50th episode, so stick around. Some people will be interested in it, some people might not, but we do of course still have a show to get through. Last week was the show after Bound for Glory. We've got to keep the momentum going and keep the ball rolling. There was something that I actually forgot to mention, which was the explosion from after that episode of Impact. I got caught up in actually booking that show and forgot to mention that on the Beautiful People show, Larry Sweeney announced that the World X Cup would return straight after Bound for Glory. We wanted to bring something to show that we're taking the X Division seriously now, and that begins on this week's explosion, which has already been recorded, but that'll show you after the episode because it airs on Saturday. So a couple of things to stick around for at the end of the video, but we are back in the Impact Zone for the 50th show of the Paul Heyman era. And we begin with a look back at last week's action-packed episode, particular focus on the dominance of the New Age, who, led by Jimmy Jacobs, have promised to change everything. They featured heavily throughout the night, and that's what the package is made up of, with Tyler Black making his in-ring debut in the main event, defeating Roderick Strong in what was a highly competitive match. The Kings of Wrestling and Jimmy Jacobs joining him in standing tall at the end of the show. However, their Bound for Glory victims, Jeff Hardy and Sting, made their presence known as the show came to a conclusion, making it clear that they were not going to take this revolution lying down. As confirmed at the end of last week's episode, Tyler Black will be in action once again this evening as he faces AJ Styles, the Phenomenal One's first match since that Bound for Glory defeat, a huge main event, and the commentators put that over before welcoming viewers to the show as the Kings of Wrestling will make their debut in the opening contest, and it is a dominant, decisive squash victory. It's not that good of a rating for the match itself, but a 60 from Castagnoli and particularly a 71 from Chris Hero. Both impressive. Hero head and shoulders above everybody else. And the idea here is, I use this word a lot, a complete showcase of the Kings of Wrestling. The elbows of Chris Hero, the uppercuts of Claudio Castagnoli, and everything else they have in their arsenal. It says the Hangsman elbow securing the victory for the Kings of Wrestling, but I was thinking that move where Claudio does the big swing and then Chris Hero does the dropkick. To show one of their more unique moves, I think would be a good idea in this match. The Cutler boys stand no chance against the dominant team, but it's two teams making their Impact debut technically. A decent segment, we can see a lot of red notes there, but Jimmy Jacobs and Tyler Black join the Kings of Wrestling in the ring after their win. The leader of the New Age takes a microphone. Before he can speak, Jeff Hardy and Sting come to the top of the ramp, mirroring the conclusion to last week's show. This time, Sting tells Jacobs that he's had his chance to talk, now he can listen. We've all heard him for 10 straight months, but Sting says that while the New Age may have blindsided and outnumbered him and Jeff at Bound for Glory, they know that man for man, it won't be that easy. But Sting's going to keep it nice and simple for him. He and Hardy then begin to walk down the ramp, with Jeff saying that they're going to come to the ring and beat the crap out of the New Age. It doesn't get more straightforward than that. When they reach the ring, the New Age members look ready to fight, but Jimmy Jacobs withdraws them from the ring. Black, Hero and Castagnoli protest. They want to, in their youthful exuberance, just go after these two and lay them out. Once they're at the top of the ramp, Jacobs reminds Sting and Jeff that Tyler is in action yet again tonight, while those two are getting another night to recover from the attack at Bound for Glory. The end is coming for Jeff Hardy and Sting, but he'll decide when they get put out of their misery. So Jacobs on one hand is trying to protect the three wrestlers in his group because they are either in action tonight or have already been in action, but at the same time he's also trying to get in the head of Jeff Hardy and Sting. They made that impact at Bound for Glory, and he's saying that they can do it anytime they want, so Jeff Hardy and Sting need to be prepared for whatever is around the corner. Cutting to the back, Mickie James is shown with her partner Tara, offering support to her fellow Knockouts Tag Team Champion ahead of her match later tonight. Mickie says that she knows Tara, Awesome Kong and Hamada are all ready to face the New Age, but if anything goes down, she'll be right there at ringside. Tara appreciates the support and says that once tonight is over, they can focus on defending their titles at Turning Point. Mickie James agrees, but says that given the talk she's had with Paul Heyman this week, it might just be that she makes her singles debut before the pay-per-view. So a pretty simple segment, just getting the champions on screen once again and promoting that later tonight, Tara, Kong and Hamada will face the New Age. We then go to the interview area and AJ Styles is asked about tonight's huge main event, his first contest since the defeat at Bound for Glory, and he says he is desperate to get back in the ring and put what happened to him behind him, get it out of his mind. He wasn't able to get back in the ring after he lost the title at Lockdown. That's kind of what led to his downward spiral. That's what he's hinting at there. Tonight, he intends to send a message to the New Age. They claim that everything has changed since their arrival, but some things have stayed the same. He's here to prove that this is still the house that AJ Styles built. They might want to burn this place to the ground and rebuild it in their image, but there's a lot of men and women in the locker room who are simply not going to let that happen. Speaking directly to his opponent, AJ adds that he's known all about Tyler since Black was a teenager. He's watched him grow into one of the most impressive athletes on the planet. He's not going to try and downplay him for 1 second, but AJ promises that tonight is a step too far. That's going to be a great main event. Hopefully it delivers in terms of the ratings. But we then go to the office of Paul Heyman, another backstage segment, but Kurt Angle is seen with a World Heavyweight Championship over his shoulder and the global title which James Mitchell handed over to him last week in his hands. He tells the man in charge that he wants to accept Abyss's Turning Point challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship, and Paul Heyman supports this, saying that he's looked at the win-loss records of the roster in 2010. Abyss stands head and shoulders above any other contender. Paul adds that James Mitchell and Abyss are in the building tonight, and Mitchell has requested that Kurt meet him to give his official answer. Angle says that's completely fine by him. He's not going to get bogged down in the mind games. He's happy to go to the darkest, dingiest corner of the building, and he's sure he'll find those two there. He'll deliver the Global Championship back to Abyss, and then the Monster can bring it with him at Turning Point when they go one-on-one for the World Heavyweight Championship. So a decent backstage segment. Again, these 2-minute segments are never going to get that good of a rating, but both guys improvise well, so you can't really ask for more. A strong second match here. Sonjay Dutt defeating Austin Creed 7 minutes and 44 with a 450 splash. I learned from last week's mistake. I didn't set this as a high spots match. I instead had them work the crowd, and you can see by the green there that that worked to a positive effect. It's a really good rating, actually. 62, obviously the great chemistry helping them, but Dutt with a 66 is definitely an encouraging rating as he looks to continue his path that he feels is his destiny to challenge for the X Division Championship. With Kazuchika Okada and Larry Sweeney at ringside during the match but unable to have any effect, Sonjay Dutt takes a microphone after his victory and tells Okada that he wants a shot at the X Division Championship. Sweeney and Okada get up on the apron, with Larry Sweeney saying that isn't going to happen. Dutt says he wasn't talking to him and indicates that he intends to punch Sweeney in the face just like he did at Bound for Glory. Dutt adds, "I was talking to the champ." Okada then looks to enter the ring to confront Dutt. He doesn't want to back down, but Larry manages to stop him. A little bit similar to what Jimmy Jacobs did earlier, but I suppose that's what their managers are there for. Sweeney says that Dutt may not have noticed, but there's a World X Cup going on. Okada's a little bit busy leading Team Japan to victory in that tournament. Dutt is of course well aware of this as a former winner of the tournament. Sweeney and Dutt are the hosts of the World X Cup, just because I thought them rubbing shoulders would be a nice addition to this Dutt-Okada storyline, and the group back away up the ramp. Once at a safe distance, Larry Sweeney thanks Sonjay for his interest and says that he'll keep his name on file. If anything opens up in the future, he'll be sure to be in touch, so patronising from Larry Sweeney there. Jeff Jarrett is then shown arriving at the Impact Zone, where he is immediately approached by the TNA cameras. The founder is asked for his feelings on the incident from Bound for Glory, where he was laid out with his own guitar by Mr. Anderson. Jeff Jarrett dismissively asks, "How do you think I feel?" It's a pretty stupid question, to be fair, before he continues on his way. He is then asked what his plans are here tonight, but he's already been rubbed up the wrong way, and he tells the person behind the camera they'll find out when everybody else does, when he goes to the 6 sides. Amazing Red, Hernandez and Homicide are then shown in the back playing cards. When Homicide and Hernandez both fold, Red takes the pot, With the game now over, Homicide and Hernandez addressed the camera, saying that in all the talk about the best tag team in the world, people seem to be forgetting the 3-time champs that are stood right in front of them. Homicide adds that people can ask Kazarian and Daniels just how good they are. Hernandez admits that Beer Money and Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team are two really, really good teams, but sends a warning to the World Tag Team Champions. LAX have got their eyes on Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin. So another really strong team coming into this division. I've spoke a lot about how great the tag team division is, but you've got those three who are at the Bound for Glory match. You've got Bad Influence, who we are looking to build back up. Hernandez and Homicide have been really strongly booked since they come back. Before we go into the third match of the night, Mauro and Taz recap the history between all the women involved. At Slammiversary, Alyssa Flash and Mischief joined the New Age when Jimmy Jacobs turned his back on Awesome Kong and Hamada, who had been the original members of the group. From that night, Flash and Mischief, they were completely on board with the vision. They held the Knockouts Tag Team Championships and appeared unstoppable until they crossed paths with Tara. Beating both champions made Tara the target of the New Age, but at Bound for Glory, she teamed with the debuting Mickie James to take their titles. Later on the same night, Sara Del Rey joined the New Age, with Awesome Kong once again finding herself screwed over by Jimmy Jacobs and company. While both rematches will come in due time, tonight will mark the first opportunity since Bound for Glory that any of these women have shared the ring, and hopefully, I was going to say that adds heat to the upcoming match. We're actually losing heat to both storylines, but 50's okay, and the match gets a decent rating. I might have hoped for a little bit better given the amount of strong performers in the match, but the New Age defeat Awesome Kong, Hamada and Tara when Sara Del Rey pins Hamada with a cross arm. She pins Hamada. During the match, Jimmy Jacobs distracts Kong. It's not that he actually gets involved, but Kong absolutely despises him, so she has her eye on him. Mickie James is also on commentary, I think, although it doesn't have a note there. Normally it tells you, doesn't it? So I forgot to put Mickie James on commentary there. But it is just a match to put over the New Age. It was their debut as a trio, and by going over three women who have held titles in the company before, it should establish them as a very strong unit. The New Age stand tall to end the hour, with Jimmy Jacobs putting over his belief that all the gold would belong to them at Turning Point at the very latest, but that's just the beginning. There are 6 titles in this company, and he wants every single one of them to come to the New Age. As he looks to continue, Jimmy is cut off by a furious Roderick Strong. Strong says that Jacobs called him the dumbest man in pro wrestling last week, but he could not be more wrong. Strong reminds Jimmy that he never wanted anything to do with this New Age in the first place. Roddy says that they can knock him down as many times as they want, but whether it's the world title, the X Division title, the global title, the tag team titles, he is going to do everything in his power to ensure that the New Age do not get their hands on any more gold. Roddy says that a lot of people have already expressed that they don't like the New Age, but having seen behind the curtain, having seen how this group operates from the inside, stopping them means more to Roderick Strong than it does to anybody else on the roster. So it's a poor segment really, both men struggling. I did say this was the end of the first hour. There's actually one final segment as Jeff Jarrett is shown storming into the office of Paul Heyman, who appeared to be in the middle of speaking with Desmond Wolfe. Wolfe looks pretty pissed off by this, but Jeff tells him to keep his mouth shut. Knowing what Wolfe is like, Heyman asks him to let this one go this time. The TNA founder tells Paul that he's going to have to shuffle some things around tonight because Jeff is going to go to the ring and he's calling out that slapnuts Mr. Anderson. He isn't sure how long it's going to take him to deal with Anderson, so he better clear some serious time on the show. Initially annoyed by the interruption, Paul Heyman looks impressed by the fire that Jeff Jarrett shows. He says that he can make that happen, with Jeff leaving pretty quickly, having got what he came for. Paul Heyman then turns back to resume his talks with Desmond Wolfe, but we cut away. They were of course having a private conversation, and that brings the first hour of the show to an end. We come back for the second hour of the show, and Bobby Lashley makes his first appearance since Bound for Glory, coming down to the ring and complaining about the job that Ken Shamrock did as the referee at the pay-per-view. Lashley says that he isn't one to make excuses, but since Samoa Joe bitched and moaned about their match at Bound for Glory 2009 for 12 months, what must Joe make of this? He can't be happy to have won that way. But Lashley isn't like Samoa Joe, and that's why he isn't going to complain. He's just going to make the challenge. He's not going to wait until Bound for Glory 2011. He wants to put this right at Turning Point. Samoa Joe comes down to the ring, grabs the microphone from Lashley and tells him, "You've got it." He then drops the microphone and heads up the ramp. Lashley a little bit surprised at just how easy it was for the two to agree to the match. Joe briefly turns back as he's walking up the ramp, sort of asking Lashley, "What more do you want from me? That's what you asked for, that's what you'll get." He won the match at Bound for Glory, but he's more than happy to do it again at Turning Point, and it is that straightforward. Both men happy to square off once more. The commentators confirming that there will be the third Lashley Joe match at Turning Point in a couple of weeks' time. The commentators actually letting the segment down, and it's not that good of a rating, but we go into the fourth match of the evening. Angelina Love with Velvet Sky at ringside, defeating Brooke Tessmacher with ODB and Lacey Von Erich at ringside with a breaker bitch. Straightforward match. Did it rated on eye candy just because it'd get us a better rating. Angelina Love does dominate though, and it gives the crowd a bit of a breather. After the match, Velvet Sky joins Angelina Love in the ring. The beautiful people mock ODB and Lacey at ringside. They then gesture around their waist, making it clear their desire is to become the Knockouts Tag Team Champion. But we then cut back to another poor segment. This isn't, unless the main event really pulls us out here, this isn't going to be that good of a show, I don't think. Usually it's our angles that actually pull us up, and we generally have a decent main event. We need Tyler Black and AJ to deliver here. Kurt is then shown in a dark area of the building with the World Heavyweight Championship on his shoulder again and the global title in his hand. As he turns a corner, we see James Mitchell in a distance, but the monster can't be seen. This causes Angle to understandably grow slightly nervous. He's expecting to be jumped at any point. He asks Jim, "Where is he?" but James avoids the question. Angle looks around before offering the global championship back. James shakes his head though and says, "There can be only one." Jim adds that at Bound for Glory, Abyss towered over the Ocean Center with his title, while Kurt Angle laid out in the ring at the end of the show. Only one of them came out of Bound for Glory looking like a champion, and it sure as hell wasn't Kurt Angle. Abyss then blindsides Kurt from out of nowhere, taking him down. This isn't a surprise to Kurt, but there's not much you can do, especially with the low visibility. It's quite hard to see exactly what Abyss is doing, but it's enough to take Angle down and keep him down. Mitchell then has one last message for Kurt Angle. Abyss is going to be more dominant than he could ever have imagined, but he reiterates that at the end of Turning Point, there can be only one. So Abyss is going to need a new gimmick, that's pretty clear. It's getting stale, and if he's going into a main event, we're going to have to give him a new gimmick and hope that it gets a good rating. Mitchell not coming out of the segment looking good, while Angle puts in a fantastic performance, but the key here is that 66 really isn't good enough for a main event Angle, and the next couple of weeks are really going to have to build this back up. Returning from a break, Bryan Danielson is shown entering the office of Paul Heyman, with Desmond Wolfe still in the room, still in talks with him. Wolfe has his arm in a cast, and Heyman tells Bryan that Wolfe has something to say. Desmond Wolfe demands an apology from Bryan Danielson for what happened at Bound for Glory. With a wry smile on his face, Bryan instead offers a handshake to Wolfe, suggesting that they put all this behind them. Of course, Wolfe can't shake his hand due to the injury, and Bryan knows this. Paul Heyman says that Wolfe wants to take action if Bryan doesn't apologise, but again, Danielson laughs this off. He asks Paul why he needs to apologise for beating Wolfe and making him tap out clean in the middle of the ring. Paul Heyman says, "You don't," but before he can even finish the sentence, Bryan cuts him off, says, "That's great, I'll be leaving them. If he doesn't have to apologise, then he won't." As he leaves the room, he forcefully pats Wolfe on his injured arm, further frustrating the injured competitor. Paul Heyman shrugs, but Wolfe clearly isn't going to let this go. He's making all these excuses to try and take attention away from the fact that he was beaten pretty decisively by Bryan Danielson. We then have a very short match, and it's a thrown together team. Jesse Neal and Sean Bashir are defeated by wrestling's greatest tag team. Just to try and at least give this a bit of an explanation, we're saying that Sean Bashir, having been dumped by Rob Terry, is now looking to find a new henchman. Jesse Neal stepped up, but having lost in 2 minutes and 50, it doesn't look like they've quite found a chemistry yet. Shelton Benjamin head and shoulders above another 81. Charlie Haas with a 62 is okay, and it's not a great match, but again, Benjamin and Haas to an extent coming out looking good. Beer Money then come out after the victory of Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team as Shelton Benjamin and Charlie Haas celebrate their win. With more than a week since Bound for Glory, the commentators wonder now if the violence is set to flare up again. They've both had chance to recover. Haas and Benjamin looked pretty much 100% in that match. Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team are even ready for this, but Beer Money just want to talk. Cutting through the usual arrogant facade, James Storm and Robert Roode cut a passionate promo about their spot in the company and what they're going to do to defend it. They say that before Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team came to TNA, most people understood that they were the best tag team in the world. They're not here to run down Haas and Benjamin. Instead, they actually put the duo over, saying that they are a great tag team. However, while they were being mentored by Kurt Angle and Paul Heyman, Storm and Roode were cutting their teeth, helping build TNA up from the ground floor. They are two of the forefathers of TNA Wrestling, and everything they've been through in order to reach this point is what's made them the world's greatest tag team. So there is face tendencies in this promo, I suppose, because of the passion they're showing and the fact that they're kind of saying that they helped build TNA up. Hopefully the way it's delivered at least still makes them seem quite heelish, but being the best tag team in the world matters to them. They're the self-proclaimed Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team, but Storm and Roode aren't going to let that lie. Haas and Benjamin may disagree with what Beer Money have to say, but they have a pretty straightforward solution. A match at Turning Point, a challenge made, Beer Money accept, a decent rating, advancing the storyline of Road to the Dream match. In my opinion, Beer Money v Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team is probably the biggest dream match in terms of the way these teams will look back on, but with Motor City Machine Guns having the World Tag Team Championships, both of these teams want to face them. We then come back from the break and Jeff Jarrett comes out and cuts his promo on Mr. Anderson. It's a decent segment and he talks about being laid out at Bound for Glory. The founder says that from the moment Mr. Anderson signed on the dotted line with his company, he's complained, he's made demands, and he's refused to integrate himself into TNA Wrestling. He seemingly didn't know what he was signing himself up for, but he soon will. Mr. Anderson comes out and Jeff tells him that he took every word against this company that Anderson said at Bound for Glory personally, but he's not one to attack somebody from behind like Anderson is. He challenges Mr. Anderson to a fight, man to man. He wants to go, and Anderson likes this idea, but he holds his neck. He's got a minor neck injury that he's dealing with. This did actually happen on a house show, so I think it's a 6-day injury for Mr. Anderson, but technically he isn't fully fit to compete. Anderson says that Jeff is the perfect symbol of everything he has tried to push back against in this company. These people are too stupid to realise it, but everything Anderson has said is absolutely true. Mr. Anderson will be 100% for Turning Point and challenges Jeff Jarrett. He wants the match then. Jeff agrees, but says that he isn't coming to Turning Point for a match. He's coming for a fight. So both men doing well off script and hopefully bringing the fire. We want Jeff Jarrett's defense of the company to be passionate, but also Mr. Anderson firing back at him. These two are two really good promos, and I think this is a storyline they can really get their teeth into. So hopefully the performances, albeit with a 76, which isn't that great, but I think that this is going to be a really strong storyline over the next couple of weeks as well. Prior to the main event, the commentators put over the huge announcement from last week's Explosion, the return of the World X Cup, an Explosion exclusive. The tournament will begin on Saturday's episode of the show, along with the reveal of the teams and competitors. But we do now go into that main event, which will have been heavily promoted throughout the course of the night. This is a really big match to be putting on, so I don't want it to just seem like we're throwing it out there. Throughout the night, the commentators will have been promoting it as we go into AJ Styles versus Tyler Black, and an 80 rating. Tyler Black actually only with a 58, so not that great. AJ Styles carrying the match, it probably has to be said, even with him being off his game. So if we'd have got AJ Styles on his A game, who knows how good this match could have been. But the key is that we sent them out to steal the show. They had matches in reality. I know there was one in 2006 when I was looking it up, but I think in 2010, these two having a match and just going all out, balls to the wall to put on the best possible match. It has great heat, but only good wrestling. I'd say that's certainly underplaying it, and people might be a little bit disappointed to see that the 20-minute time limit expired and we went to a draw. This is just a way of keeping both men strong. AJ Styles, if anybody was closest to coming to victory during the match, he actually sets up for a phenomenal forearm, but Tyler Black rolls to the outside upon the instruction of Jimmy Jacobs, and in that time we do actually see the 20 minutes elapse. I've never mentioned the time limit before, but I don't want it to be one of those things where all of a sudden, I've seen it on TNA before and probably other companies, where nobody ever mentions this time limit, this arbitrary time limit, and then all of a sudden you hear the ringside announcer saying 5 minutes remaining. So we don't even have anything like that. It's literally just that they go to the 20 minutes, the bell rings. For me, the reason that a 20-minute time limit works is because I booked 6 matches on a 120-minute show. If you wanted to look back through the previous episodes, we've never had a match on TV go 20 minutes, and it's always been in my mind, albeit something I've not specifically stated. With the time limit draw then taking us to the end of the show, there is a clear discontent from both sides following the bell. Black is desperate to prove himself, of course, but Jimmy Jacobs stops him from returning to the ring. Again, Jimmy Jacobs being more methodical, and that comes with the territory of him leading such a young group. Tyler Black, Castagnoli, Hero, and the women in the group, they're all up for the fight. They're all there to prove themselves. They've got that youthful enthusiasm, so Jimmy Jacobs is there to take a more cerebral approach and slow things down, make sure that everything goes exactly to plan. They, of course, should trust him given how everything has come to fruition so far. Inside the 6 sides, AJ Styles is equally angered by this outcome, banging on the canvas in frustration at Tyler Black being able to slip through his fingers. He thinks if there'd just been another minute in that match, he would have got the victory. The commentators put over how important that first post-Bound for Glory victory will be for AJ Styles. That's probably why this has disappointed him more than maybe other matches he hasn't won in the past. He stares down at Jimmy Jacobs and Tyler Black, who have by now reached the top of the ramp. The commentators sign off, saying that while it is far from over between these two competitors, tonight does end with a stalemate. After this main event, the man who has been here since day one couldn't defeat this member of the New Age. Both sides, of course, this would have been a huge win for either guy. Again, not that great of an episode. A strong main event, but the angle's really letting us down there. That's probably the case of not having that strong of a top storyline. Having AJ Styles and Kurt Angle always ensured that we probably had one segment up in the high 80s or 90s. With Abyss, it's not quite there. We also had Explosion, which was all about introducing and setting up the teams on the nights. We've got Team USA, Roderick Strong and Generation Me. Team Canada, Eric Young, Sean Spears and Tyson Dukes. Team Puerto Rico, Homicide, Amazing Red and Lindsay Dorado. Team UK, Douglas Williams, Martin Stone and Zack Sabre Jr. And we've got Team Japan, Kazuchika Okada, Kiyoshi and Yoshi-Hashi. You can see there the 4 matches on the night saw Roderick Strong pick up 3 points for USA over Tyson Dukes. Eric Young picking up points for Canada over Lindsay Dorado, Amazing Red with a win for Puerto Rico over Doug Williams, and Kazuchika Okada winning the main event, defeating Nick Jackson and gaining 3 points. So 4 teams with 3 points, UK the only one without any points. Claudio Castagnoli getting praise and Kazuchika Okada getting praise. Again, Shelton Benjamin really loves Okada. The ratings are, I think they're getting worse and worse. Eric Young getting praise as well. But the thing that I wanted to say, for the 50th episode, somebody mentioned this in the comments quite recently, that they wanted to try out this save or whether I'd upload it. So what I thought I'd do instead was turn the save into a database. I'm just going to save it so that nothing goes wrong. But the idea that we can do this at the end of the month, so I'll do this on Monday, week 1 of November, and there'll be a link in the description to the database where it'll have everything updated to this point. So there'll essentially be a mod that is November 2010 where you can play with all the changes that have happened from now. 50 episodes is a really cool milestone. I want to hit 100 episodes, maybe even more. We're just going to keep going because I think there's so much potential with this young roster. There's stuff that I've got planned out all the way in 2012, so no time soon will this save be ending. But thank you for watching, really appreciate it. All the feedback from Bound for Glory and the fallout has been great, so thanks for that, and hopefully we'll be back with another episode pretty soon.